actually you were given the opportunity to help found this new Azov battalion. Can you tell us just how that took place and what the plan was going forward? What were the early days like for Azov?
So in 2014, the Azov was called battalion, but it was a real size of battalion. There was somewhere 200, 250 men. As you know, and most of the people know, the Azov was gathered by football fans called the hooligans. It's a young kids who actually are football fans, and they gathered in one so-called team, so around Andrei Beletsky, who was actually founder of the Azov movement. There was one biggest minus that young kids weren't trained to be soldiers or fighters. Yes, they had a will to fight, protect, but there was no specific education for a military. It was a military background. So we started, my team, we started to support Andrei and the ideas which we had to fulfill it. At the beginning, of course, there was not exactly good idea, but there was another chance. We trained at the same time we fought.
Yeah.
So it was quite difficult. But after 2015, we decided we had ideas. These guys all of them was the bright kids. A lot of guys with bright ideas, not corrupted, not spoiled. So we wanted to be a future base of the future Ukrainian armed forces. So for that, you need to be an example because you need to lead by example. So in order to be an example for and base for a new future foundation for the future Ukrainian armed forces, so we needed the education. And we said the education is priority right now. And we started in 2015. We created one of the first phase was to create a school.
Yeah.
That was a school of military leaders. And we trained the commanders, leaders of the regiment at that time, from platoon to all the regiment level. At the same time we fought. There was a 3 months training, pure NATO directions, because we said all this Soviet, post-Soviet education what was in the military. So that was not acceptable because technologically, mentally was already in the past. So we proposed a new way. And all the instructors were, of course, Western educated in US, in Britain, Europe. So, and it worked. Second, we decided to work with Backbone, which didn't have entire Ukrainian army. It's the NCO Corps, the non-commissioned officers. And we created in this school, we created courses for the NCO, and it successfully worked during the 8 years. And those are different courses, but main idea to be successful, it's not only giving education, but you need to motivate a person. And in order to motivate the Azov movement and Azov regiment had its national idea. The national idea, because they call us different names, but main idea, motivating idea is Ukraine. And everything around the core and center of gravity is Ukraine. And around the Ukraine and the United Ukraine and the Syrian state, they were working. That's once they started the motivation, idealistic generation.
Yeah.
Of course, we had a lot of problems with it from the government, from the different sector of administration. But even though we had an aim, we had a goal, we just started to work to that direction.
So obviously, as you know, I know it's a sensitive time now because of the ongoing war, that we need to touch upon some issues that have been pushed by Russia. So there's a general misconception surrounding Azov, as you
already understand.
But no, what I'm going to do is just ask for your opinion on the Western propaganda that's been pushed. So, and Putin has openly said Azov are neo-Nazi.
So actually, Azov was one of the reasons denazification of the Ukraine, right?
And we know that Putin will find any reason. First, he was frightened of the UN that they were pushing closer. Then that didn't work, so he said, okay. Nazis, they're all Nazis. There are social media posts. Social media is where it mainly thrives, where this misconception thrives. But is there a certain element, or has there ever been a certain element within Azov who that contains Nazis or racism?
Okay, let's go in the basis how it started. At that time, from the beginning, Azov regiment was one of the best trained and effective unit which Ukrainian has. The Azov had the majority of their members were nationalists.
Yeah.
Ukrainian, it's nothing wrong with it. It's not a Nazis, it's not a racist, it's a nationalist. And their national idea, as I said, was Ukraine. Symbol of the first, in the beginning of the when it was a battalion, was a symbol which we carry today, but it's a little bit different. So what the Russians did, they started propaganda. Propaganda because, first of all, every country, doesn't matter any state, when the nation has a problem, all nation gathers around nationalists, around the national idea. They need the core. Of course, after the war, this national idea remains, but the movement itself comes down.
Yeah.
But core, it's nationalists who actually move the nation against the enemy and resistance to them. So that was clear. So Russia started this speculation with the world that we're neo-Nazis and so on and so on. First reason was the picture symbol of so-called...
It looked reminiscent of the SS.
But even though today I could show it, we changed it. But this idea was national idea, N-I. The two letters, national idea.
Exactly. See, we don't, I'll be honest, in the West, so in the UK, in the US, we're not told this. And when it's actually explained, it makes sense.
Exactly. That was a problem. That it was not explained to everybody to be clear. So in order to avoid any speculations, Azov is a regiment. We're not a private military sector. We're not some kind of private army or security. No, it's a regular regiment within the National Guard or Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. It's a regular unit.
Yeah.
The unit itself cannot go and do the...
So you have to stay within the guidelines.
Yes, so guideline, because we're military, we're uniforms. So what was it done mistakenly at that time, in the previous years, the government should react on this. The Ministry of Internal Affairs or Ministry of or National Guard or Commander of National Guard or Speaker, they should have said this is a speculation, this is a regular unit, but never it was done.
Yeah.
I don't remember any reaction.
Yeah.
So state remained quiet and the Russian propaganda worked well.
Yeah.
So everybody thought
it needs an explanation, doesn't it?
It needs an explanation.
The problem that you see online, particularly, is that one narrative is pushed.
It does. It should be communication.
Yeah.
But when the Russians says they are neo-Nazis, we became in a position to protect, to not explaining but proving.
You're constantly having to defend yourself.
Explain your ideology. But this was actually job of the government.
Yeah.
To regularly says this is not real
because you're part of the army. Yeah. What do you think that, if anything, Azov could do to improve that image? So we've talked about getting information out there. Is Azov actively, do they have people working in PR so that they can change that Western perception? Because it's quite dangerous. Some people in America and the US are believing Putin's
I understand.
lies.
First of all, let's go back to all this racial stuff. If it was a so-called aerial races, this sort of my language, but crap.
Yes.
We should not be there as a Georgian foreigner or any other country member there.
And you wouldn't be defending a Jewish president, would you?
It's kind of crazy. We never. Somebody might have the symbols. I don't deny. In the beginning, there was maybe someone, but what we did right in 2014, we decided to say no. It's not representing the regiment.
Yeah.
It's an individual person who actually confronts the regiment's name and we said, no, you cannot be. Some have the tattoos. Yeah. But this all the persons were transferred to another unit, somebody left, but it was a volunteer unit before it was created as an official unit.
Yeah.
So since it became a part of the National Guard, we're closed.
Yeah. And when you think about it, there are other institutions and political parties and regiments, not just in Ukraine but across the world. I'll take England as an example. If you were to go into one of those organizations, you'd be able to find an anti-Semite. You'd be able to find a racist. I think perhaps probably what the problem has been is that the media have focused on the very tiny minority, and then Russia, etc., have said it represents the majority when
Yes, exactly. If you look at it, imagine it was kind of acceptable to keep quiet for even from some persons who are from the Ukrainian side, because they looked at Azov as a danger.
Yeah.
Because we were a new generation who was against corruption, who was against all the things going in the state. So we were demanding the reforms. Every reform in a nation is painful. So old guard, let's say, called old generation, old representatives in the state, of course, it was acceptable for us to call us, something like boogeymans and racist and nationalists and Nazis. But when in fact showed up, there wasn't single example, cannot say that it was anywhere. But as you mentioned, yes, the unit should be open, and we've always been open for press media.
Yeah.
Always been welcomed.
Yeah.
However, we had an experience with the press. Then when we invited them, and they came up with the stories, made up stories.
Yeah.
That's true. Was a made up stories because it was he had an order to come up with.
They come with their own agenda and narrative.
Yes.
I completely understand that. Throughout this invasion, they've shown unimaginable courage. You were actually in Mariupol. Can you tell me about your experience there and during the invasion?
I had a big background, military background.
Yeah.
Took your part in different conflicts, but unfortunately never had such experience what I've seen specifically in Mariupol.
Yeah.
Only I could compare with some World War II.
Yeah.
That was total crazy.
Yes.
A lot of war crimes, no dignities, no honor, really affecting the psychologically and morally every human being who was in Mariupol. I think it was 19 on February. I was still in Kiev. I was waiting for information on TV when the Putin was going to recognize independence. So it was an indicator for me, for Azov, always. We worked. We had a plan how to work during all these 8 years. And everybody, of course, was saying that it's not never going to happen. They're not going to attack. It's going to be the low intensity conflict.
Yeah.
Wherever we knew. As that was pure indicator that war is imminent. It's a direct involvement of Russia. As I said, the 2014, that was the first phase of the war. We call it separatism. People call it press call separatism. But it's not separatism. It's a first phase of a direct involvement of the Russia. On the second phase, 19 or 20, I was in Kiev. Degrees were taking a degree higher and higher. And the night when he showed on TV that he's recognizing that was that, hey, war is going, it's going to be imminent, it's going to be attacking. First of all, it's going to go strikes, air attacks, and we need to get ready for it. Of course, unit at this time was more or less ready. When was my team went back down to the Mariupol and we started preparation. We had a SLP, the regimental commander, had his tasked every unit. There were 3 battalions and plus attachments from different services. And we started preparation.
Yeah.
And we heard on 24th was the first airstrike started in Kiev and all the strategic key to infrastructure of the Ukraine. But same time, on the east part of the Mariupol city, the war never stopped, actually.
Yeah.
It was always war since 2014.
Yeah.
It's 20 kilometers from the Mariupol.
Because you'd been there before, hadn't you? Yeah, you were based in the beginning of when you sort of founded Azov.
Yes, actually it's a story that's kind of changed. 2014, Azov went for supporting the rest of the troops wars in Ilovaisk.
we're going back to Mariupol. You mentioned that you saw war crimes, and also you must have seen some horrific things that most of our viewers, and myself included, won't even be able to comprehend. Can you give us a picture of what you saw and what you went through in Mariupol?
Picture of Mariupol comparing with the Ukrainian Bucha. Ukrainian Bucha comparing with Mariupol, hitting ground, playground.
Yeah.
War crimes, what I'm specific personally seen and witnessed, I was devastating. Even though I'm used to war and blood and wood and casualties, it still was difficult because you see a lot of civilians, innocent civilians. You see the children, you see the women or elder persons. First, my experience, I remember that was direct hits to the living quarters, regular building where lives the civilians, no militaries in there, no fights going. So we're just hitting the buildings because they are tall.
Yeah.
As they've been afraid there might be artillery OP, its observation post, or I don't know, anti-tank or team sitting in the buildings, but they've been destroying these buildings.
Mm.
And I'm sure because I've been checking mostly my area's responsibility, every building in the basements, they've always been hiding the civilians who are living in the buildings.
Yes.
10, 15, nine-story buildings. And they've been hiding in the basements. And I've seen personally how this building is collapsed.
Yeah.
And they just buried them alive. That was impossible to dig them out because we didn't have any heavy equipment for it.
Yeah.
And the engineer equipment. And you need to seize the fire to conduct. Unfortunately, such kind of buildings was tens and dozens. What I witnessed and personally see. I witnessed when early in the morning, somewhere 5 a.m, husband arrived small car, get his wife and child from the basement, put him in a car, and I was somewhere 50 meters just looking at them. I remember they put the bags in the back of the car, put the child in the car, female, and husband still was fixing some bags in the back of the car, and suddenly tank was a direct heat. It didn't explode, it just evaporated. Child, wife, and husband in a small car. It's a civilian.
Yeah.
It's not an APC, it's not an armored vehicle or tank. No, it's just a civil, regular civilian. It was a daytime.
It's just completely unjustified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just killed them. I've seen how it's the evening when the fire ceased because the Russians were fading the night fire, we had advantages in the night operations. That's when the fires is ceased and civilians start to come up from the buildings, from the basements to get some food or water because there was a disaster in Mariupol. There was no food, no electricity, no water, nothing. They start to looking for the food, and all the food that was at a military. And civilians were trying to come up, find the military and Korean militaries and get some food from them. And what the Russian did, they've been shooting this, mostly the females who come up from the basements, and they shoot them, wound them, and of course they scream, yell, it's painful, of course, and they're waiting for our reaction. Either we start fight to rescue that person, or we do nothing.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just get tired and shoot them after. I mean, that was execution. That was pure execution.
How does this all affect you? We don't talk about the psychology and mental health of soldiers. You can have all the training in the world, but when you go to a place like that and see such destruction and terror inflicted upon civilians, innocent civilians.
You never get such a training.
No.
Trainings that you see how they're... See, every war has its borders, red lines.
Yeah.
You don't cross it. You have honor, you have dignity, and you're a soldier.
Yeah.
But you never cross it. I just call them, and even animals, they don't like it.
Yeah.
You're just psychopaths who just executing, having fun with it. And you can get trained on this psychologically. In my experience, I never had a chance to see such a massive without understanding where is it competent or non-competent. So just shoot everything, destroying everything, did not care for it is danger or not, it is building or just I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Their purpose was just to destroy,
Yeah.
eliminate. And you see, the most devastating is the children. It's what really affects.
Yeah.
Because I'm a person, I'm a father, and I know how it is. And when he sees all these children, because every evening mostly I was trying to go to the basement, get some whatever snack we had, such as switch to, if there's kids, we just hand it to them. And after you come out, the next morning you see the buildings destroyed and kids you've seen in the basement, they're there. You can help them. And psychologically, if somebody tells it could betray somebody, that's a lie.
So how are you coping with it? Like you say, and I completely agree, you can't have training up front. How are you and your soldiers dealing with seeing such death and such heartbreaking images?
Honestly, I don't have an answer.
Do you think it might kick in later? Do you think this is going to have its toll on you and your soldiers?
Of course, somehow it's going to have an effect.
Yeah.
Of course. More or less people are ready for it. Because my background and experience, I'm more or less I was ready, but not like this.
No.
But there was a young kids who just joined the army, who just first day, for example, start fight.
Yeah.
They're not trained for it.
No.
Military, because the military needs special training. It's years. It's mental training, psychological training. But it doesn't give you 100% that everything's gonna go fine. It's gonna affect. It's gonna affect not only the person military, it's gonna affect the entire nation.
Yeah.
Because there was a moments when you say, that's it, I'm not gonna take any prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Because you're so pissed off.
Yeah.
But after, still, when you come down, you still think because you're in a prisoner of war, because your friends, some other unit members, or they are the other side. You gotta treat them as well as the respect and dignity because he's a POW.
Yeah.
It's that you tell yourselves you're not an animal like them. You can't cross this line. Otherwise, there's no difference.
So Azov's attitude is to treat them as humans. Is that what you're saying?
There is no single fact that I will tell that Azov, we had a lot of prisoners of war from their side, from Russians, Chechens, the other nationalities. None of them was touched.
Yeah. Because
even before the war from 2016, I guarantee that personally, I was involving Red Cross representatives who were training Azov basic combat training as instructors. The Red Cross instructors were supporting our training with the Geneva Conventions, with the law of war, and the rest of the how to act in the war.
That must be hard, though, no? So to have, someone in your custody who is part of the effort that has been killing civilians. Do you not, have you spoken to any of these prisoners and asked why? Why are you doing this?
Yes, we spoke with them, and what is funny, suddenly they lose their brevity and say, "Oh, we thought it's a training." I understand. The problem, the Russia itself problem, we see this could be happening everywhere. As soon as state loses his source, I mean alternative source of information. Because I'm saying the press media is a key. In Russia, there's only one source. Yeah, it's a ideology and propaganda.
Like North Korea.
North Korea. There is no alternative source. As soon as government grabs and occupies the information source, nation becomes like whatever we see in Russia.
Brainwash.
So brainwash. Yeah, it's all brainwash because we need to support them. Even though you don't like whatever the other information sources says, it have to be. Yeah. Otherwise, it became like a Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's go back to Mariupol. So obviously the invasion was very brutal there, and Azov were at the forefront of defending Mariupol and came under attack. What were the last few days like, and how did you get out of Mariupol?
You see, let me tell you that Azov regiment itself, in a garrison, that was a primary unit.
Yes.
Which has the mission and three primary combat tasks. Primary mission to defend the city and the civilians, which I think the Azov did successfully. But after Russia went all over the country, from different directions. So the different realities.
Yeah.
And as always use the task, we have to pull on ourselves every possible Russian resource. Trade past first, gain the time in order to Ukraine and could call the operational reserve and train, prepare, and deliver operational reserve. We did it. We call it gain the time in order to give a chance to the troops, the rest of the defense forces to regroup and reorganize to the different areas. We gave the time for that. And third primary mission, again, gains the time to allow the state to get support from the West. We did it. All the tasks and mission was successfully achieved. However, last days, in 2 weeks somewhere, we ran out of ammunition in artillery. We didn't have any artillery ammunition. In 3 days, somewhere 26, city was already sieged. Was cut out from the entire Ukraine. We had a plan. According to the plan, we start working. However, we have limitations in ration, ammunition, with the supplies, and Russia start using aviation, artillery.
Yeah.
What was again? I want to highlight the aviation. It was like once in a day. It was like in every 15 minutes. So we just been rotating, drop and bounce and drop with nonstop. There's hundreds of flights in a day, in the pairs. Plus, you have battleships, which are hitting the rockets from the sea. So, city itself was sieged all 4 directions. Fifth dimension, we call it sky, was closed.
Yeah.
So, we actually could say that only the whatever weapons we had on the hand, it's a light infantry weapon systems against artillery, rockets, and aviation.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult because it affects the morale, it affects the physical condition. And there was somewhere 13 to 15,000 troops actually around the Mariupol. And inside only the 3,000 person in the region, in garrison.
Yeah.
It's on Azov, police, Marines.
And what was it like in there at the time? That must have been the most intense situation ever.
Situations were tense. It was tense. As I say again, it physically affected the lack of the food rations, because all the food rations we had, it was on the regiment. Yeah. And when we received the civilians in bunkers in Azov, we started sharing the food. We started sharing the medical supplies, the operations. So our medics had to do the triage, choose whoever gonna leave. Yeah. And this affected the amount of we had, and plus in time, we had this in a time. Of course, we didn't receive any support from outside. Yeah. And all these resources was gone real fast. So there wasn't electricity, so there wasn't water supply system in the city. Yeah. So somewhere in the 2 weeks, it started disaster inside. It's a humanitarian disaster. It was catastrophic. A lot of wounded, children. And during one of the operations, we were in the central part of the city where I got wounded. And after I was evacuated to the hospital, to the Azov factory in the basement, after operations, I heard children are laughing.
Children what?
Children were laughing.
Laughing, yeah.
And I was sort of like, after the operation, maybe I have a little hallucination. Yeah. But actually not. There was a children running between the beds of the soldiers, and I realized there was a civilian children wounded who was in the hospital with us. That was devastating. But same time, there was as well the families of the garrison personnel members. They didn't left the regiment. They didn't left the garrison. They wanted to stay with their husbands who was fighting in the garrison. So they stayed in Azov. But this was one of the motivators for us to keep fighting, to defend them. So we had what to lose. We had our values behind us. Yeah. We had a family, we had a country. What's that? Nothing. So motivation and
bravery
was depending on them.
Yeah. Tell me about the evacuation of Mariupol. And sadly, during that period, you lost some of your comrades. So some brave men, and we're talking about them from a human side. These are men, husbands, sons, brothers. How did that make you feel?
I mean, explaining this feeling kind of hard to explain how you feel it, but you feel pissed off. You feel angry. It's difficult to explain, but at the same time, it motivates you.
Yeah.
It's all your motivation you have. You clearly understand in the beginning, right in the beginning of the war, we clearly understand there was no any other way to end this. We knew that we're gonna stay all the way, and we trained for this rest of it. And every soldier understands that, guys, we're gonna be sieged, and we're gonna fight all the way.
Yeah,
we're not surrendering. We're not dropping the weapons. For the years, was trained as much as we could, but it's still, as we said, you still cannot get to the situation psychologically. Yeah, I lost a lot of friends with whom I actually run for 20, 15 years together with them. I lost kids. I call them kids because entire regiment is my family, and there are kids compared with me because I trained every single of them.
Yeah,
me and my team. I know every single of them, and it's difficult. It's very difficult and hard to realize that they're my children and they're not anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, this pisses you off, and there's anger, but you still need to remain calm, not to make mistakes, because we have to rest in our lives.
Yeah.
And my job as commander, job of my friends and my commander's job, higher commander, is supposed to keep calm with a cool mind, because we need to save this rest of the unit's lives.
Yeah.
When I got wounded, I was in a hospital in the basement.
And how did you get wounded? Apologies.
During in the middle of the city, we clashed in a close combat. We were clearing the buildings. At the other side of the buildings, there was the Russians pushing. There was tanks, 4 tanks, and Marines, Russian Marines. So we clashed in a close combat hand to hand, in close distance. I was a commander to that area of responsibility. And during the clearing of these buildings, I got shot. A friend of mine, with whom I actually spent 27 years of my life since, let's go as a young cadet, we ran together. He pulled me out. He dealt the first aid, evacuated me. He took over the command, saved 2 more guys, delivered us to the point of evacuation, returned back, and continued fighting. Next day, he also saved 2 more soldiers. The guys regained the control over the lost buildings, destroyed the tanks, but he died in the combat. He was killed in action. We received 2 bullet wounds in the stomach. And when I was in the basement, after 3 days, of course, we were in a siege, right in the middle of the night, somewhere 3 in the morning. I didn't know because what was the time, because in bunker it's dark and you don't see it's a day or time. But I remember I was sleeping and suddenly somebody wakes me up. There was a Commander Redis, regiment commander. And he's not only commander for me, but he's my, first of all, hero. He's my friend. He's my student and brother in arms, which is most important. I was kind of got pissed off. Why you are here? What are you doing? I thought he just visited the bunker, but he was in a different location. No operation was ongoing that he will try to evacuate the heavily wounded. And I was kind of smiling and told Redis, this is madness. It's impossible. Unfortunately, he already planned this operation and planned very well. Planned together with GUR, it's Military Intelligence Department of Ukraine. And so there were some brave pilots who decided to fulfill reality this operation.
It was remarkable. I think it put the British SAS to shame, didn't it? It was such a special operation, and that's how you got out of.
Yes, exactly. Actually, that was 3 in the morning. She said in somewhere in a half, we're gonna start moving, and to move to the point of or pickup point, evacuation point. That was somewhere 3 or 4 kilometers, but it was quite difficult. But in the night, still aviation was flying, bombing. There was a helicopter flying. They were dropping the bombs, and we were moving somewhere like 16 of us. So they've been moving us like 100, 200 meters, hiding again, moving, hiding, in dark under the cover. So we arrived at the point, and it still was suicide operation because even we were in a pickup point, we were in open terrain, and somewhere a couple of 100 meters from the enemy forward edge of the battle area, and they've seen us. As I said, we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna get in a helicopter. So helicopters were delayed somewhere hour and a half, somewhere 6:15. They arrived. And they landed. They said, "That's it. We're done." Because same time, the Russian helicopters, Russian jets are flying on the top of our helicopter.
Yeah,
they're bombing the front. But that was I heard the command for the entire city. I think this operation was Redis did together with the commanders, and they said we need to defend these helicopters. We need to protect them to allow them to first of all land. Unload the equipment which they brought. This was really made me happy because when they dropped first Starlink box, I said, that's it. Boys gonna have it comms. Communications, and plus we've seen the Stinger. And I said, okay.
So you started having more hope.
I hope that they're gonna fly so openly. The Russians started bombing. At the same time, entire city of the Azov regiment and garrison, they received the order to protect these helicopters, and they opened the fire. It's like shield, it's like wall. So we had somewhere 10 minutes, imagine somewhere 10 to 15 minutes for unloading, loading the wounded. It took a time, and you need to protect this helicopter which hadn't opened, and the entire city sees that. And the Russians was using the Grad system, which is a multi-rocket launch system. It's aviation, everything was bombed. And they protected, and we lifted, and just was with a high speed, whatever helicopter could reach, and just fly to the sea, what was direction of their ships. I also said they're gonna shut us down. But that was a tactical, how to call that? You need to have some courage to do that.
How did it feel when you finally got to safety, and also when you knew that you were going to see your family again, more importantly?
First of all, you see that you're flying and they're shooting at you. Right now, we're going to fall in right now. I mean, they're going to blow up. You feel it. I said, we're not going to make it. But there wasn't any other choice. You die on the ground or you die in the air, it's not a big difference. The biggest hope, actually the motivation, we're not going to die, that was the pilots, because say, if they came here for me, if they came for my boys, they risk their lives, they're professionals, they know what they're doing, and there is, and I said, I don't have to think about this. I'm like, they're going to do what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and I trust it. And I trust it. Of course, you have these feelings that you get shot by rocket, but you trust them. And even though you're not making, they did it for you, they're right for you. And you have an obligation to just call the way with them. And as soon as because we were laying down on the floor of the helicopter, and you see the machine gunner, after somewhere hour and a half flying, he pulls out the machine gun, unloads it, and there was a sign that that's it. We're in a safe area, a safe zone. And as soon as
how did that feel then? When you've just you can see your family.
All the family, you realize you're alive. You can make it. Boys made it. We made it. I made it. And in the Mariupol, You have, we call it 7-second life.
Yeah.
Why we call it 7 second? Before, I mean, farther than 7 second, you don't think. You don't see a future or anything. 7 second, it came up after you hear the artillery round is coming. You have a 7 second when you hear it, the incoming. And during the 7 second, some of the pray, some of the think something, but this short period, 7 second of life. You missed it, they missed you.
Yeah.
It's good. But as soon as we landed there, comparing with it, you realize that suddenly you don't have the 7 second, you have an entire life in front. And you can start all over again. And that was, emotionally, yeah. I hugged the pilot, the crew members from SF team, because I appreciated what the boys did.
Yeah.
And it's a good example for everybody that we're gonna do the same for them.
Yeah.
So we own them.
Yeah. We've talked about some of the horrific things that you've gone through, and also some of the encouraging things, the inspiration things that you've dealt with. What do you think is going to happen in this war? How long do you think this war is going to roll on for? And what is Azov continuing to do throughout the ongoing Russian invasion?
I think this war is going to be not short. It's going to be a long time, but it still depends how the Western world going to support us. Not react properly accordingly to the situation and scenario. You see, Ukraine right now is a gate protecting from the east. If this gate fails, guess who's going to be next?
Yeah.
Guess where is going to be the war crimes? Guess whose children and families is going to be burning, dying, and be raped, and will be in mass graves? This is the center of Europe. So that's when we need to support Ukraine to let its gate and walls hold it. But it needs the support. Primary right now mission is for us. Azov, of course, continuing. We're still fighting. We're training. We're fighting. We're ready for it. But primary mission for us as well is to retune our prisoners from Russia, to save their dignity and respect. And I hope Russians will, I don't trust it, but I hope they will treat the prisoners accordingly, as we did their prisoners.
Yeah.
Because there is a thin red lines which not to be crossed, and hope to exchange them.
If you could give a message to those prisoners, to your comrades, what would it be?
Hold their ground. They're not forgotten. We remember. We'll fight for them. We'll do everything for them to exchange. But still, whole world looking at them, new generations looking at their families. Holding grounds, doesn't matter what happens.
George, listen, it's been an absolute honor to speak to you today.